Thanks for joining us at Right On Replicas, where we bring you the best scale model kit reviews on the planet.
From the TV show Starsky and Hutch, probably the most memorable thing was their bright red tomato striped car. This review covers the 2015 release of the new tooling Starsky and Hutch Torino in 125 scale. It's kit number 85-4023 and it's rated a skill level 2 for the moderate builder. You get 88 parts molded in red, black, chrome, clear, and clear red, and it includes vinyl tires and metal pins for the axles. The motor builds up nicely and is a 21-piece unit that only needs some wiring to really shine. The chassis is somewhat basic, but detailed and has a separate suspension for both front and rear. The tires are bigs and littles, but there's no markings on the sidewalls. The interior is a multiple part unit and the details are crisp. Most of the dash details are done with decals. The body is a one part unit with a separate hood, and I found no mold lines to speak of. The final assembly is tight and the car has a nice solid feel to it. So instructions are the basic Revell format, and paint callouts and decal placements are clearly noted. They are crisp decals and include the body markings and the big stripe. Overall dimensions are length 8 9/16 inches, width 3 1/8 inch, and the height is approximately 3 inches. Here are the decals for this kit. As you can see, they're very colorful and the registry is good. I strongly recommend using some decal setting solution to make it fit those contours. But as always, use the manufacturer's safety and use guidelines when using any of the products mentioned here in the review for your own protection. For most of the construction, I use Model Master liquid cement and sometimes a slow setting tube glue, but other adhesives are used too for strength like super glue and white glue for clear parts. Mostly the paints are Tamiya acrylic bottle paints that are shot through an airbrush, or rattle can paints that can be used for things like primers. After unpacking the kits, I suggest that you rinse it off after a little bath of a light detergent, and then after it's air dried, give all the parts a coat of neutral gray primer. Get a good etching primer that will adhere to the paint well. Make sure that it is compatible with your color coats. We'll start construction with the motor. So get these parts out and assemble the block, the heads and the intake, the oil pan and the transmission pan. And then, now the instructions will have you put the intake on backwards. The distributor is in the front of the engine. Now, once you've got that assembled, paint the motor blue and the transmission aluminum, and the starter is black. Paint the oil filter white and add number 22 decal to it. Install that to the block, and paint the carbs copper color and install them and the air filter to the intake. And add the valve covers and the breather caps to the heads. Paint the manifold steel and install them onto the heads, and then paint the water pump aluminum and install it. The belt is flat black with an aluminum alternator. Paint the power steering unit and the fan black. Then add the power steering unit to its belt and install the belt and the fan onto the motor. I decided not to use the kit supplied distributor and instead made a pre-wired distributor for my model, using some electrical wires, plastic tubing, and some 2mm jewelry beading tubing for the plug boots. So I drilled out the hole in the intake for that, and then added the distributor to the engine and glued them into place at the cylinder head spark plug holes. Now the motor is complete, and as you can see here from the left and the right sides, it's a pretty good looking and well detailed motor for your kit. Should go well in the finished product, especially with the hood open. Next we'll start on the chassis and get these parts out, assemble and paint the radiator flat black. And the copyright script that you see in the second photo here, it should be scraped off with a hobby knife and then sanded smooth. Then paint the chassis flat black with a semi-gloss black frame rails and a steel gas tank. Install the motor onto the motor mounts and add the radiator and install the radiator hose into place. Assemble the rear suspension and paint that black, as well as the drive shaft, and the front suspension is black with a steel tie rod. The shocks can be any color, yellow, red, blue, depending on what brand you want it. Install the exhaust into place, then add the front suspension to the front pins. Add the rear suspension and drive shaft to the rear pins and attach it to the end of the transmission. Now install the shocks too. Now make a note that the tires are larger in the rear than in the front, so match the rim fronts and rears according to their sizes. And give the tires a street-used look by pressing and rolling the tire tread onto a sheet of fine sandpaper. Then paint the rim backs flat black with aluminum outer trim rings. Install the metal pins into the rim backs and then the rim backs into the proper tires. Now add the front rims. Now you can take the tires and install them into the proper locations with the smaller ones in front, using just a little dab of glue on the ends of the metal pins to hold the tires in place and allow them to rotate. Now you have a rolling chassis that you can build the rest of the kit on, so just set this aside. The dash is nicely appointed, so glue the pedals to the back of the dash and glue the steering wheel to the steering column. Paint the dash and the column black, and the shift stalks on the column are silver with black ends, and the pedal shafts are steel color. Now the radio is an off-white with a black microphone. And now you can add the decals according to the gauge map here. Add the steering column and the radio into the dash. Now grab these parts from the interior and paint the parts black. Assemble the front seat and to its seat backs, and then the trim is silver on the door panels. And you can check the internet for specific color choices if you don't make the Starsky and Hutch build. I wanted to add some realism to the car, so I used some what they call craft flocking. You can get that from hobby stores or off the internet. And I painted the floor with some white glue, and then sprinkled the flocking in place, and then tamped it down, dumped off the excess, and viola, you've got yourself a carpeted model car. Now you can glue the front seat and the interior side panels into place. Now seat the dash into place and glue that securely into the slots provided, and set the interior aside with the chassis for now. Now we've primed the body and gone over it to look for blemishes, smoothed those out, done any adjustments needed there. And at this point you can add the front bumper support corners and the mirrors into place before painting with your color coat. Here's a tip: if you like to have hoods that you can remove to show your engine, cut the tabs off, the hood hinges off, but just leave enough to align the tabs in the slots inside the motor bay there. For authenticity, I painted the body with the proper color for a 75 Grand Torino, and the color code is Ford Paint Code 2B, bright red. Now you can decal the car, and aside from a few body emblems, the major decal for this, of course, is the white stripe. I suggest using plenty of warm water, soften it up, and be able to put some on the body to move it into place, and then use some of the products that are available for setting solutions to help it conform to the contour. Next, I used a foil application to make my chrome trim appear realistic, and it's like tape. You just cut strips and place them onto the trim areas, and then you trim off the excess with a knife, and you just kind of adhere it to the body, and you can burnish it there so that it stays in place and looks like real chrome trim. To improve the appearance of your window glass, dip it into some Pledge Floor Care finish, and then wick off any of the excess and let it air dry. Doesn't take long, but it really makes it look crisp and clear. Now use some white glue or Tester's Clear Model Parts cement to glue the windows into the interior of the car. Now gather the heater unit and paint that black. and the master cylinder is steel with a gold top, and then install both items onto the firewall. Now slide the interior into place, lining up the pins on the rear, and it's a good tight fit, should just stay right there. Now we can install the chassis into the body. It'll go straight down if you just bend the sidewalls of the body out slightly, and she'll slide right into place. And then it should just stick right there without any glue required. Now you can see but the simple but elegant engine bay looks very nice. There is some detailing that you can do on it. So once you're done, that's going to be a real nice display focal point for your model. Now get out these parts to complete the front end of the model. The red police light lens there for the bubblegum on top needs to have the bottom trim painted aluminum, and then it's glued to the roof on the passenger side. So add the mirror faces, and then give the grille a wash of 50/50 flat black and thinner to highlight the recesses, and add the badge decal there. Then install the grille, attach the headlights with white glue, and install the headlight units into the body, and then paint the bumper guards flat black and install the bumper, adding the license tag. Now you can get these parts out to finish up the rear end of the vehicle. Insert the red center trim into the rear trim and add the tail lights. And the tail lights will have a white center that can be painted in for the backup light. Install that unit onto the body and paint the bumper pads flat black and add the tag. Install the bumper, and you have completed the assembly and should have no parts left over. Well, there you have it. After decades of requests, Revell finally answered everybody's request with a striped tomato kit. It's a specific model kit, so there's no extra parts. That's why it's got a lower part count, but it's a really nice kit. Everything fits together well. The motor's nicely detailed and looks great, and it has crisp details. Even with the assembly of the chassis and frame, you can detail that pretty well. The wiring, this one is easy, so you can do lots of detail in the engine. I'd like to see, fuel brake line moldings, but hey, you can always add those on your own. But for decades, people had wanted a Ford Torino kit from this body style, and they finally got one that they can work with. This is a really nice looking kit with bigs and littles, and it's a pretty accurate rendition of the famous Starsky and Hutch Grand Torino. So pick one up and put it on your shelf and display it proudly. We hope you liked this premium quality step-by-step review, and so that you don't miss any more, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. But you can find us on Facebook and also at our website, www.rightonreplicas.com. Thanks!